You're listening to the NVus Alien Podcast with your host, Heather Woodward, an award-winning psychic, supernatural author, and lover of all things true crime. On this show, we're going to deep dive into topics that don't usually see the light of day. The spooky, the weird, the macabre, the paranormal, and of course, aliens. Sit back, grab a cup of tea, and let's get on with the show.
Why don't you guys talk about going to the Abbey the time before?
I heard a rumor that somewhere in the area here, there was a monastery where they had nuns, and they had an organ there inside the chapel. And they also had a large amethyst, like cathedral quartz, amethyst crystal on top of this portal. Supposedly there was a hole in the ground that went down to nobody knew where. It was like some unknown portal that went down there, and there was this large crystal sitting on top of it. I heard the rumor that there was this place from a lady named Dana at a donut shop I was in conversation with one day and talking about, I don't know, getting donuts for the kid. She was telling me this story about how she was in there one day, and she had been in there a couple times, and she wanted to play. She's a piano player, and so she wanted to play the organ in there one day. And so she went in there to kind of sneak in and play the organ. And so whenever she went in there and started playing, one of the nuns was there and just let her play because she played very well. Whenever she got done playing, she was walking out or something like that. The nun had told her that she had asked about the crystal she had seen there. And she said, yes, this is the 3 days that we moved the crystal off the hole every 7 years. I was wondering where this place was. And so I looked up any place in the area where they had nuns or monastery. Nothing was coming out. The Abbey popped out. But at the newer construction, it seemed like what he was talking about had happened a while ago. We went there the first time, and I went into the bookstore, and I went to go start talking to the guy there at the counter, because you're not supposed to talk to the monks there because they have a vow of silence. They're not supposed to talk to anybody. So we respect that. We went to the shop and started talking to the guy behind the desk. And I asked him if there was anything like a crystal on top of a portal anywhere around there connected to any ley lines. He didn't have any knowledge or any awareness of anything like that. He said ley lines had to do with maybe laymen, and laymen were the kind of the working class men. That was the direction he took the conversation. I asked him if there was any supernatural stuff going on there, and he asked if I was in connection with the Catholic Church. And I was like, no, I'm not. He asked if I had been baptized and if I believed in Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. I asked, like, I've been baptized whenever I was 10 years old. I accepted the Lord as my Savior. And he said, that'll be for the rest of your life. And I said, thank you for his information. He said if there was anything of interest, to come back and ask if we saw anything there. We were welcome to go and look around the place, go into the crypt underneath. And I said, what's a crypt? That sounds like, do you have dead monks down there? And he said, no, it's just underneath the main chapel area. It's a place where they do their prayers underneath the chapel. It's supposed to be underground or half underground traditionally. That's about the gist of our conversation together. She got some good cheese and some books and some a keychain and a pin.
I bought the keychain and the pin because they blessed them there. He went in the back and he put on his robe, he put on his hood, and then he did some chanting stuff over the keychain.
Saint Benedict is the main guy. Of course, there's a large decorative thing outside. There's a large sculptural piece outside the chapel, and in the middle of it, I said, is that Saint Benedict? He's, no, that's our Lord and Savior, Jesus. They also had some really nice artwork in the crypt, some large gold leaf paintings that were icons.
It was all a bunch of women, though. The church was dedicated to Mother Mary, and it was underground, of course. It was like a low space. But we went down the spiral staircase into the crypt, and then we went down to the river. And the river was interesting. It was before it rained, so half of it was dry. And there was something about Janu there. That's what I remember, is that I had that feeling of like fairies and fairy magic. And there was like these little caves. There's these like rock formations, and then there's like little caves underwater there. And I was like, oh yeah, there's definitely elementals that have that energy. And so I forced everyone to go to the farthest point that we could get on the river, because it bends. And of course the Abbey is on literally on top of this river. It's built like over the river and this stream. So I was trying to get to the farthest point to see what happened at the bend, and I guess it goes into an actual lake. But there was something about the water moving in that direction that really called to me, and I felt Eve Janu there. And so we built like a rock formation to her to honor her. And then there was that pipe that you were all like tripping on.
There's a large pipe that was coming up out of the ground that was broken. And then there was other pipe pieces that were broken. And it was like, it looked like a straw that had been broken. As we were going there, we got some drinks for the kids. And one of the kids stuck his straw through the outside of the cup. The shape was coming out of his cup. And it just made like a terrible mess all over it. It was very reminiscent whenever we got there, that the pipeline coming out was like the source of a mess or something like that. It was just same energy going on there. But it was neat. There were rivers. So where the caves were was like, there was some underground water coming from that way. But there's this this way. We walked out there to where we were at the point where they were meeting, and the underground for the river where it met the main river, we put the formation. We stacked rocks on top of each other.
I did some dowsing to see how the energy of the Abbey worked. And so there's like this huge dragon line of energy that runs parallel to the Abbey. And I was trying to figure out if it was intentionally put there because the dragon line was already there, or if the Abbey actually created that line, because the line goes from the Abbey into the lake. It's the same line.
With the flow of the main river.
Yeah.
Like where that river comes from.
I wasn't really sure what we were doing there, because it was just like that weird triangle thing was there, and it was broken, and we were like, oh, it's the triangle, or we have to square the circle or something. I don't know. There was something about that. But then, I don't know. It was just like Danu showed up, and she was just like there, and she didn't really tell us to do anything. But we paid tribute anyway, and it was just like this weird feeling of like just being watched. Later on, once Stephanie went there, we realized that we had started the ritual, or we had paved the way, or I don't know, we did something that made it so when you went there, the ritual could happen the way it was supposed to happen. So they laid down the framework for it or something.
Yeah, we had intentions of trying to help mend the masculine and feminine energies there.
Right.
And the first time we went, so whenever we went back, the rivers, they were up over all the stones, and you couldn't even see the pipes that were sticking out of the ground. The river was up so high, we couldn't even walk out to where we were before. Walk through the forest, but it was like a swamp to get to where that underground part of the water was coming out.
Yeah, before that, after you guys went, I want to talk about the pipe, because we got on a big conversation about the pipe and what it meant and bridges, because we were talking about the pipe and what was going on. And we came to the conclusion that the flow of the feminine energy was being blocked, was being stopped. Like there wasn't a connection there.
Now, did we fix the energy? I don't know.
I don't know, but that came up though when we were doing the ritual.
It's so interesting now that you say that.
Because we were talking about pipe and the bridges and the cave. So we had this big conversation about all of that. And that's when the Nephilim was trying to channel to you, and it came to me because you didn't want to talk to her.
I don't remember that.
So we both out her. You don't remember that? We were talking and we were having this conversation about whatever we were talking about. We were going down the rabbit hole with the caves, and we were in a video chat, but you started to feel something coming in, and you were like, no, I can't channel right now. I'm not going to channel. And then it popped to me. And that's why I asked you guys about the next one. And I didn't get much. It was like, use bridges sparingly. Because we were talking about bridges and making the bridges go over the water and trying to figure out what this portion of the bridges was. And there was like, use bridges sparingly. And then after that point, we realized that you don't want to make bridges over the water. You want to go with the flow of the water because the flow of the feminine was being blocked.
When the contracted, you made me listen to that story about salmon.
Mhm.
Can you tell that story about the salmon, what it represents?
The salmon of knowledge. It's one of these fairy tales, folklore tales from Ireland. There's a salmon. Perhaps it was one of the original colonizers that turned into a salmon and lived in nature for like hundreds, thousands of years and learned everything there is to know. And there's a poet that was out there one day trying to fish for this salmon, and he had his pupil there with him. This bard poet finally catches this fish. He gets it cooking, and he tells the boy, I'm going to go wash up, and don't take any of this fish. Don't eat any of it, because the knowledge will lead to whoever eat the meat of this fish. And as he's washing up, the boy is taking the fish off the spit, and he burns himself, and he goes, ow, and he sticks his thumb inside his mouth. And from that point on, the knowledge jumped into the boy. And when the poet comes back, he could tell instantly that the boy was transformed. And he said, what's your real name? And he tells him his real name, which was hidden from him. And you can go ahead and meet the rest of the fish. It wouldn't do an old man like me any good anyways. The guy, at any time he needed to know anything from that point on, all he needed to do was stick his thumb in his mouth, and he instantly knew whatever it was that he wanted to know. So that's the myth of the salmon of knowledge.
We call them the salmon thing. We were in Ohio, and I guess the part of Ohio we were at used to be a canal town, and part of the Erie Canal is still there, and so they still have the locks there. All the water was going in one direction. It was all going downhill, but the locks are going up, not down. So you use the locks to go up the stream, since all the water is going downstream. And then there is this place in Zanesville called Three Rivers, the Three Rivers Bridge, where it's three big bodies of water intersect, and then there's like a waterfall. It all goes down. But if you go to the locks, all the locks in that area, all are supposed to bring the boats up. It's like the salmon. We were like, we're listening to salmon on the way there, and we're totally like having these synchronicities with these locks. It just seemed like that whole trip was like a salmon fighting upstream the whole time. And I don't know, there was something about that, something about wisdom and using the locks and the salmon. And now you're saying that we had a conversation about bridges. And then we just went to a wedding on a bridge called Baker.
Whenever we were there, the tow truck guy that was helping me out with my flat tire, the second time we went there.
Which place are we going? What place are we talking about?
The second time we went to the Abbey.
Okay.
I got a flat tire on the van whenever we parked there by the river. And we had to call the tow truck guy to help us. And the tow truck guy said the bridge had been hit. He had to come out here because somebody ran into that bridge out there one time. Not that time, but another time before he had been out there because someone ran into that bridge.
Know that part. Do you know that part?
No, I didn't hear him say that.
I didn't hear him say that. That was while we were out there. We were fixing the flat. He was talking about that.
So we're supposed to use bridges sparingly?
Because at the time we were talking about building bridges, and what I got from that and the conversation we had is that the flow of feminine energy was blocked. So flowing with the water, not stepping over it, like not being in the emotion, not being in the flow. If you go on the bridge.
But don't be in the flow. Go over it.
No, don't go over it.
Don't go
because
over it.
Because the feminine energy was blocked. So the feminine energy is blocked and it's not flowing. Like the gist I got was release the emotion, release the flow, release that energy. Don't try to just build a bridge over it.
Yeah.
And like bypass.
Well, that goes into what's happening right now. Somebody's not playing for fluff. But anyway,
then I decided to take a trip with my kids to go visit the Abbey and visit Heather and Buck and his kids and see what all of this was about, because it was very interesting and there was definitely something going on. And so we went over there and we drive out to the Abbey, and we barely got in there and Buck's van had a flat tire. But it happened to be at the place where we wanted to stop and have a picnic and explore, because that's where the river flows. So coincidentally, we ended up exactly where we wanted to be.
Yeah, that is a little weird too, because we fixed the tire exactly at the right time too. So everything was in sync.
So we pulled over to try to fix the flat, and we got the ice chest out to eat, and the kids were exploring. And as they were eating and exploring, Heather and I walked back up into the trees because there were more caves, because we couldn't get to the caves that she had gone to before because it had rained and there was a lot more water flowing. We couldn't get there, and we were exploring and feeling the energy. And it was a different energy by the caves than it was in the open area where we were really just trying to fill into the energy and see what was going on. And I had the intuition or the desire to try the tree that we had tried in our ritual in Tennessee. So I put my hands on a tree that I was drawn to, and I pushed my energy down into the ground, and the whole area lit up.
It did. It was intense too. It was
Like you could almost like an earthquake. It was weird. And when I did that, I could feel that energy that was pulling just like the river. Like it was pulling me around and through, like past the churn, and I didn't know where it was going. And then ticks started crawling all over me, and so I didn't follow it anymore. I just wanted to get out of there. That was all itchy and scratchy.
It's interesting though that you say that the water was full then, because then that would mean that the water was actually moving in the right direction all of a sudden. So the energy must have been moving correctly.
Yeah, a lot more was going with the feminine energy that time. We had a good connection that second time. We did different things. I know whenever I was there with your oldest son, yelling up to go use your phone and call for the AAA guy because we didn't have signal down there. And we had tried to fix the van by using a jack, and we got the wheel off, the flat wheel off, and we were going to put the spare on, but we had to lift it up some more. We had to jack it up some more. As we were jacking it up some more, the van leaned forward and the jack was on uneven ground. And so it all leaned forward and it just laid on the ground in front of us. Luckily slow enough that nobody got hurt. The jack just leaned over forward. And then the van was on the ground without the wheel on it. So we had to call for help to get it up. And the tow truck couldn't make it down there to the van because his gas tanks underneath his thing were scraping whenever he was trying to get down there. So y'all went up to go call. We were like, what are we going to do here? So we wanted to make a good impact. I wanted to do something to make a good impact. There was a puddle, and then there was like another puddle inside of the puddle that were like a heart inside of a heart. And we took a heart-shaped rock and we put it inside the middle of the hearts, and we stepped on it, or I stepped on it, and then to leave a good impression in that area. Y'all were coming back down in the truck. Y'all drove over it with your tire track, rolled over that particular spot that we had set that rock inside those two in that puddle. That was pretty neat, interesting. So y'all came back down, and we were waiting for the AAA guy, and we had to go use the bathroom. We all went back up there. Y'all picked us up for.
So while they are trying to fix the tire and jack it up on a jack that wasn't made for the van, which didn't help either, Heather and I were over by the water and we saw ducks. Like, why are these ducks here? Can't figure out what the ducks mean. They've got to be something. They're just standing there, sitting there, staring at each other. And that's when you said they were about feng shui.
Yeah, ducks and feng shui. So if you want to bring in a mate or you want to bring in a counterpart, you're supposed to put two ducks together on your altar or in your corner of love, which is also the feminine corner. or the corner of women, we have to be looking at each other, though. We have to find each other. It just so happens that the dust, we're staring at each other exactly how you put them in feng shui. And I was like, okay, that's really strange.
Yeah. And then I guess we need to back up and talk about our automatic writing channeling session that we had with the light language. Because we were going to
Run with it.
we were going to practice channeling light language, or so it was. And I was in transit when they were doing it, but I started to feel like I needed to channel something. My arm was on fire. And when I got home, I started just writing pages and pages, and I can't read it. I don't know what it said. Heather was able to read it, and it was about this past life and this past relationship with this person.
Somebody who was really wanting to talk to you. That's right. And he kept writing things over and over again.
And that what happened right before we went to the Abbey. So then we saw these ducks. It was like, okay, we have to heal something with this person, or we have to call him in. We have to do something with this person. Then we started thinking about the calling him this person and the divine feminine, the divine masculine, trying to figure out what the hell we were supposed to do. So then we started just asking Buck random questions.
I was digging a hole under the van, trying to get the jack that fit, because the jack was made for a truck and not for a van. It wouldn't just fit underneath where we needed a jack. And I'm digging it up, and I'll go, hey, y'all start asking me, what should we do? What do we do here? And I'm like, well, y'all need to dig.
That conversation, I don't remember what all we said, but it ended up that we were talking about this flow of the feminine energy and how it was backed up. So then we started looking for a place in this area where the energy was stopped and where it was backed up. And there was this drainage pipe that came out the side of the hill, and there was a big, just muddy, rocky area around it. And we're like, okay, this is where it's stopped. This is the energy that is blocked, and we have to unblock that somehow. And through discussion and brainstorming and asking questions, we realized that I needed to take a lot of that toxic feminine and those energies that were being blocked by the masculine and release them and bury them in this area so that they could be released and heal and move into the flow. And that started the process of creating a ritual to call in somebody, a helper, or somebody that will help us on this journey. We're not really for sure exactly what the purpose of the person is still.
No, we're not, but
We found the person. That's interesting, Jeff. We did, right?
the one we put a trailer ritual, the person shows up.
While we were talking about releasing these blockages with the feminine energy and all of these toxic parts, I was actually eating an apple at the time. So felt it was appropriate to use that apple and that energy to put everything in. So when we had taken the kids up to the bathroom, I wrote a letter to this person that came through the automatic writing to release energy with this person and to really come to terms, because through that conversation, through the automatic writing, I had not forgiven myself for how we had ended the relationship or how it had happened in that past life. So I had written a letter where all kinds of thoughts. So then when we went back down, I put all of that toxic energy and everything I was releasing into the apple core, and then I buried it in the mud and turned this stagnant area into a grave, essentially. And while I was doing that, Heather was at the water throwing orange peels and giving gifts to the fairies.
Yes, I felt this need to give some kind of offering or to honor them in some way, because they were showing up, because they're like, oh, you guys are doing it correctly. So the energy had shifted, and I was like, yeah, we have to give some kind of honor, because before that, Buck and I had honored Danu, and we gave her this thing, and I felt the same thing needed to happen. It was taken away really quickly into the river.
Yeah, about the time you finished that, I walked over to the water with my letter, and I ripped it up and put it into the water with an offering that I had given. And the water took it away. And later I remembered that I said, bring him to me. Then we went up to the Abbey after that to check the cell phone and to see if the tow truck was coming, because where we were, there was no cell service. We had to go up to the Abbey to get that. So we all went up to the Abbey where we finished the ritual. So I guess just Heather, my son, and me, we were the three. We drove in the truck and everyone else chose to walk. So we went up there by ourselves and we went down into the crypt to light candles.
My candle would not light. The life of me, it would not light.
We tried, 10, 15 times?
Definitely lit right up.
As we were going up to the Abbey, we knew that we needed to do timeline work. So I had my candle and I was looking for a place to set it because there were several altars in this crypt area. We talked about like each of the little alcoves have a different altar with a picture of a saint. And there was one of Mary Magdalene, which was very appropriate because we've done some work with Mary Magdalene before. So I put the candle on her altar and then knelt down in front of it. And then Heather walked me through.
It was like a journeying session.
Yeah.
That's what I was seeing and what I was feeling about it. And we paved a road. We had the little goblin builders come and fix the road so that he could find you. And there was some other things about the soul of his cologne and some other things that just random. We went through the ritual. Took 15 minutes, but it was really intense.
All right. So, and in this ritual, the goblins and the fairies came and helped me to repair this road. And then I met this person and we actually buried the same thing that I gave as an offering in the water. It came back to me and we buried it in the ground to anchor that point.
That's right.
So we anchored that point, but I did not see who this person was. I did not smell any cologne. So I was clueless, but I knew that when I figured it out, I would know. And then that was it. And then about that time, Buck and the rest of the group came down. And Heather handed him her candle because she couldn't get it to light and maybe he needed to light it.
I hand him the candle, it lights right away, and he lit the candle with your candle, without knowing. And it lit right up, and he sticks it right next to her candle.
And we went upstairs and the tow truck person called. As soon as we finished and somebody had asked, when is the tow truck person supposed to be here? And they called. We went back down and there were monks in their truck standing there staring at the van. Who was the tow truck guy?
The tow truck guy couldn't get his truck down there. The monks and the tow truck guy are all down there looking at the van, trying to figure out how that happened, how the wheel got off and the van's there on the ground. And I told them that the 10-year-old did it. And it's the monks that they believed me if I told them it was magic. And their eyes lit up a little bit. And so it's like, I tried to explain to them what happened. And the tow truck guy's like, I don't know how I can get your car up off the ground here. And the monks are like, whoa, how about a forklift? We got a bobcat. And he said, yeah, that would work fine. So the monks went and got their bobcat forklift and brought it over and came and jacked up the van. And the tow truck guy put my spare tire on. The spare tire was low on air. So whenever they got it on, we drove up and out and onto the road, and it had pulled the tire off the rim, the spare tire off the rim. And the tow truck guy reset the tire on the rim for us and filled it up with air and got it back up and running. That was it. Everything worked out well.
Exactly how it was supposed to, yeah.
Yeah, and the monks started singing, and but we were tired from walking up and down a few times. We just were hungry, and The shop was closed, so we couldn't get cheese. And we didn't plan to not have cheese. And I think that's where we all opted to go get pizza.
Because there was cheese. So a week later, we did that on a Thursday.
They were closed.
And then we had talked
to Welsa about it, and she gave us a little bit more information about the fairies and how the orange peels had been a beacon to get their attention before I had put the letter down. They were already on attention before we had requested anything from them. So they had assisted, even though they say that they weren't there to help us. They were there because the kids were having fun, and they sent the monks to help us because of the kids.
I'm sure that the childlike energy health, I don't think it's the
Right.
They knew you were coming. They wouldn't have fucked with the tire.
I know. But then on that Thursday, we were recording a podcast, and it was supposed to be about our backstories. And somehow we got on to, I said something about the sugar plum fairy.
That's right.
And we got on the subject of the tones again, and what the tones meant that I heard in February. And somehow we brought in a lot of other information that told me exactly who that person was. Down to the last name, cologne, what smell that Heather smell was accurate for this person.
Yeah, we pulled his last name right out of our ass.
That was incredible. 1 week to the day. And then we looked him up and found him, and I've talked to him a little bit, but I don't know why.
Not yet. No,
We haven't figured that out yet.
it'll show up.
It's fine too.
You didn't ask to be with him. You didn't ask to know. All you asked was to bring him to you. So that's exactly what happened. So I guess now you need to ask. Well,
I found this person. I haven't talked to them in years. I don't even remember the last time I talked to them. Looked them up and laid out everything that had happened, from hearing tones to his higher self tormenting me and my friends. I was like, don't condemn me to hell. Don't tell me I need to be saved. Don't commit me. It was like, hell yeah, past lives. That's no helps. Yeah. I haven't really talked much more about anything since then.
not time.
No.
You just had to know who he was. So that way when it's time, we can go to know. The plot thickens.
I know.
Maybe we need to do another ritual about what he knows that we need to know. Or what the end game is here.
Yeah.
So that was our trip to the Abbey. And then the Abbey thing just kept getting weirder and weirder because Crowley has an Abbey, or had an Abbey, he's alive still. Crowley had an Abbey in Sicily. And then Bridget started showing up a bunch.
The Catholic Church here in town is St. Bridget. There's a lot of Bridget connections.
Is it Bridget or Bridges? Because
Right? Really, the Bridges, Bridges too much.
I know. I kept thinking that too. I'm like, Bridges, what's going on with that whole situation right there? But the Bridget thing kept coming up and the Abbey thing kept coming up. And there's so much about Abbeys that we found out later. There's this whole thing about it.
Yeah. So is there anything else we need to talk about?
Is that it? Or
Bridget's a pretty masculine, feminine entity. She's Hearthfire. She's a forge goddess. That's just, she did a lot of things. She was a mover. She wasn't known to be the passive companion. She was a forefront. She was a leader in that way. She was a masculine, feminine entity.
never thought about it that way, but yeah, that is true, huh? She's more of a dark feminine.
She's triple goddess. Then she has something to do with the womb stuff too.
She does. Yeah, she has a lot to do with womb space as well. That's interesting.
In the festival for Bridget in Ireland, they make these little things out of hay, and they look like little swastikas. That same form, that repeating pattern, that energy, I guess you could say womb, because that hollow space and the way that it comes down into that hollow space. Follow the spiral path. It's that spiral pattern that's different.
Follow the spiral, huh? That's St. Bridget. Okay. So I guess we're supposed to look more into St. Bridget because there's more going on there. I thought the spiral path was Ellen, but Ellen Norma told me. But then I get Ellen and Bridget confused all the time. They're very similar in their energies. Maybe I was talking to Bridget, not Ellen. So that's our Abbey story and coincidences.